Alrighty, so I'm making this video to piggyback off my previous video about my 2025 Magnum Power Drifter. It's mainly for anyone who wants to buy one of these boats, what you should expect as far as things you'll have to do, modifications you can make to actually have things mounted right, just the nitpicky things that I've noticed about this boat. And actually not even being nitpicky, but how it should be if you're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a brand new boat. So yeah, let's pick up at this anchor. This was a big ticket item last video. So refer to the last video about the majority of the details. I'll kind of breeze through it real quick, but essentially this whole anchor system had to be rebuilt. Originally it was meant to be like an adjustable anchor. Absolutely terrible design. Every Clackacraft power drifter I've ever seen in my area, if they didn't do what I did, if they had the anchor how it was from the dealer, it was always wobbling around, super rattly, just a really bad design. So how it was originally was a C-channel piece of aluminum that slid in and out. So I had to weld up this whole anchor, make it significantly stronger, and that was really the only way to bypass the original design, which was a threaded hole right here. See, I plug welded it, and you would tighten that bolt, and it would like apply tension to it. It was a terrible design. And then I welded the cleat on, and how it was mounted to the boat was two bare carriage bolts. So you'd have bare threads resting on fiberglass, right? So it'd be bare holes drilled, and those carriage bolts would essentially bear all of the weight of this whole anchor system on those two holes, and it would like file away the fiberglass because it was sharp threads vibrating against those holes in the fiberglass. So what I did, I switched them out for actual hex bolts with washers, and I did locking nuts. Once again, that is the only way to mount something on this boat. I am very confident in that answer. And what I did was I drilled out these holes, and I JB welded in some stainless steel inserts so that the weight would be supported on those stainless steel inserts instead of bare threads on an exposed fiberglass hole. It was just a terrible design from the factory. And then the last issue I didn't cover in the previous video was how to keep your anchor from falling out of these guides, these little ears, how to keep it from falling out of that when you're motoring down the water, because it will. You can see right here, this portion that's kind of rubbed was where the rope was eventually sitting because it came out of these guides. And that little gray mark, luckily I caught it right away, is where the anchor started to hit the boat. You can see it kind of hit all right here and scuffed up the boat. Luckily it wasn't worse. So what I did was I drilled a 1/4 inch hole, and I just put a pin. So if you ever do need to completely remove the anchor line out, you just pull it until it stops. You can put it right back in. But yeah, you should be able to go down the water with your anchor cleated right here. And when you do that, make sure it's cleated at the top of a knot. At the very top, that you should have minimal space between the anchor and the pulley. Because if there is space, you will hit your boat, just as I covered in the previous video. You can see all these mangled marks, that's the anchor hitting the boat. So yeah, it's a terrible design, and I'm surprised no one ever thought of it. And then I had to re-drill the holes for my lights because they were off-centered. They didn't drill them properly. Luckily, I measured from this edge over and then from this edge over. And yeah, I centered them, but once again, it was offset from the factory. You could tell one light was sitting a little bit further back than the other. It's just attention to detail, you know. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers the anchor. While we're up here, I want to cover something that really should be addressed, and that is the mounting for the Ultera. So this is where the base is, and luckily they used nylock, the locking nuts on the underside of this base. So they did that right. And then you can see right there in that corner, if you look under, that's the last mounting point, what secures it to the boat. All right, and it is it's a flush mounted bolt. You can kind of see it, but that's the head of the bolt, and that's how they secured it right there. It's a really poor way to mount it, seeing as what they did with these oars was actually smart, and they use like this big old piece of nylon so that it's a flat surface for these bolts, so that you don't have a nut on the underside of this. So yeah, like, why not do what you did here on that last bolt for the trolling motor, so it's actually can be flat and not on a curved surface underneath. And of course, they didn't use locking nuts for the oars, and they used carriage bolts up top with no Allen head, no Torx head whatsoever. So there's no way to torque it down really. You're just relying on the threads to grip down and put downward pressure on that. But if it's seized, there's no way to grab that. So what you should do is have an Allen bolt right here. But yeah, I have no idea why they are not a proponent of locking nuts. So that's what should be done. What is done here, this big old piece of, I think it's just solid nylon or some sort of like a high density, some sort of polymer. This should be over there on that last bolt for the Ultera, so that it's actually on a flat surface when it's torqued down. And then a couple more things with mounting that I was unaware of, but you can see there's 4 screws holding that graft down. There you go, now you can see them. There's 4 holding this down. And they are Phillips, of course. They love to use Phillips. The absolute, it's the worst choice that you can use on anything. It's never been a good method to fasten something. And then they also, once again, Phillips here, but you'll never guess what they did to secure this. And I'd found this out last week. That so far this is the worst thing like I've seen on this boat as far as the methods used to secure something. And I'll include a picture here. So they actually used screws, like literal screws. It's not like they drilled a hole and bolted through and just didn't use a locking nut. They literally used screws, and it blew out the material on all 4 holes here, all 4 holes here. Probably did the same thing right here, the same thing right here. I have no way of telling. But yeah, and on this as well, they just screwed it through the fiberglass, and it just blows out all of the fiberglass on the sides. It looks terrible. If you ever have to take it out, the holes are all just mangled and destroyed. Like that's just shoddy work, man. If you mount something, drill a clean hole through it, put a bolt, a washer, and a locking nut. Like, it is not rocket science, man. It's just, it's blowing my mind. I'm discovering something new pretty much every other month. I'm finding something new with this boat. I've had it 6 months. You know, the majority of all the issues were covered, you know, in maybe the first month. But yeah, I mean, how are these secured? You know, they're probably just screws, just 2 screws right there that go into the boat. And if you ever take them out, it's just going to be a blown out fiberglass hole. It's just, there's much better ways to do these things. And then I've noticed with the bow eye here, there's no way to tighten this on the inside of the boat. So it's not under there, and it's not under there. So if it ever comes loose, how are you expected to tighten it? And I guarantee they used the same setup as they did on those transom bolts back there, which they didn't have locking nuts and they weren't torqued properly. So how much longer is that going to stay tight before it comes loose? And then if you want to tighten it, you can't, because you can't access the other ends of the threads. I also wanted to talk about the design of this bow area here. So I feel like this space could be used better. When you get in and out of the boat, it's not like you can step out and onto here, onto this area. It's kind of too high off the ground, and it's not really like load bearing. So I mean, this portion right here, you can see it would probably break if you put any weight on it. Same thing with that right there. So if they could engineer it better to where it's like an actual casting deck. So if this whole area were lower and more usable, like a larger flat area, instead of all this area just being kind of extended from there and not being load bearing. Like, yeah, if you tried to step on this portion, you can see it would probably break. I feel like it would be a much better design if this were an actual casting deck that were roughly a foot lower, so that you could step from there onto it, and actually use that area. Another thing, in order to use this anchor, if you want to use it quickly, it has to be cleated, and that anchor has to be up here on the knot, right? So you have to motor downstream with it. And I've already talked about that in another part of this video. But so in order to deploy the anchor, you got to come up here and you pull on this rope, right? I have it stowed away, but you pull on this rope and then it slides down the pulley, and then you re-cleat it. Well, that's assuming that your anchor is cleated and it's at the pulley, right? If you wanted to use your anchor, and if it were in its anchor nest right here, it is extremely hard, and I mean extremely hard, to do it from inside the boat and while the anchor is already, while it's still in the anchor nest. If you want to like deploy your anchor, and if it is not prepped meaning cleated and right at the pulley, you have to essentially pick this up And the only way to do it really is to drop it off the side until it hits the bottom, until it hits, you know, the bottom of whatever, the river or whatever. And then you take the rope and you slide it around here, and then you cleat it. And the reason why you have to do that is because look how far away your body is, right? So you have to, you can't move up any further than this this casting brace. You have to reach over here, extend your arms as far as they can, pick this up and drop it over the side of the boat, and then re-cleat it. What you cannot do from inside the boat, you cannot lift this up and put it over the pulley and cleat it. It's too far away. It's too far away. And you can't step up on here, right? I mean, it's just, this doesn't look like it's gonna support a load, and it's too high up. So if they redesigned it so that this whole thing was lower, and then your casting brace could be on top of it, right? Like a removable casting brace, like an aluminum one or something. Then you could actually climb up, step on here, and then remove it from the anchor nest and then put it in here. But as it stands, your only option, if you want to readily deploy your anchor, is to have it ready to go, like I'd mentioned. And you can't do that unless you refab the entire anchor system. So, and once again, I've already talked about it, but if you have this thing cleated and hanging here, number one, it's going to rattle around if you don't completely rebuild this anchor. And if you don't do something like this and pin it, it will come out of these guides. And if you don't have it cleated all the way up to the top, it will hit this lip. So this is just, this whole area, the anchor, everything needs to be redesigned, needs to be rebuilt. It needs to be addressed properly. Yeah, there's a lot to cover here. So, all right, then I wanted to talk about some storage in the boat too. So if you want to free up some space on these side trays here and not have a bunch of stuff rolling around and getting in your way, this is what I settled on for tool storage, namely a couple pairs of pliers and a pair of scissors, as you can see here. And what this is, it's a 3-slot Rapala tool organizer. I found it on Amazon. And I talked about it in my last video, but I put it right here on the base of the rower's seat. So this doesn't get in the way at all. There was, in the last like 5-6 months that I've been using this boat, there's not been one situation where having this here has got in my way, or, you know, tangled line or anything like that. So this is a good area for something like that. You can even put another one right next to it. So yeah, if you want to free up some area in your side trays and so you don't have a bunch of stuff, you know, bouncing around in your boat, this is a really good option, at least for, you know, pliers and a pair of scissors. And then I have something else over here. This is like a boat storage organizer, I think is what the name is on Amazon. And I think it was roughly 20 bucks. And I did the same thing. I used double-sided 3M tape on the bottom of this and on the back of that. So as long as you degrease it really thoroughly, it's not coming off. I've not had any issues with that coming loose or anything. And same thing here. I just degreased the bottom of the little storage container and this surface of the boat, and yeah, it hasn't come loose or anything. It's actually really sturdy. It's actually kind of protected from the wind too, from this seat. And these haven't bounced out or anything or come out when I'm either motoring down on the water or when I'm when I'm driving, when I'm towing the boat. So yeah, if you're looking to free up some space and store some stuff, between that right there and this, it's a pretty effective way, and you get a cup holder out of it too. And yeah, you don't even have to drill any holes in your boat. Just prep your surfaces really good and use some strong double-sided tape. I use the 30-pound. I think it was Scott brand, but you know, there's a bunch of different types. All right, then one of the last things that I wanted to mention is the curved edge of this boat, right? So like, why not incorporate the mold so that it wraps into the boat and just becomes one with the boat? This whole like edge thing here, first of all, there's already a couple loose spots, and it's secured. Like you can see this spot's already kind of like lifting out. It's secured with one like nail on the very edge of it. So it doesn't make any sense as to why someone, see, it's kind of drooping along the edge. It doesn't make sense why you shouldn't just mold it into the boat so that this lip isn't here. And then also, if you ever dock against anything, so if you tie this boat against a dock, first and foremost, a good area to do it is right here. I'll just do a loop around this, and I'll go ahead and put that to whatever cleat is on the dock. But if it's against a dock, what has happened and what I've noticed is that when someone steps in this boat, this whole side of the boat comes down, right? Well, when it does, this lip smashes down onto the dock. In a normal boat that is, you know, that doesn't have that overhang, it just slides up and down against the dock. But because this boat is so high, and if a dock is like right here, well, yeah, when you step in it, this boat is gonna come down and it's gonna hit just like that. So who's to say it can't like snap this off eventually or something? So yeah, that's happened to me like 2-3 times. Just something to think about. So maybe they'll change their mold and just put that whole lip inside the boat, and it's one less thing to have fail. And if this lip weren't here, then the anchor wouldn't swing back and hit it. You know, it would be inside. You know, that's, there's also something to be said about this whole little, it's just a piece of tape is all it is, separating the two tones. That's eventually going to come off. I wish I would have done one coat to mitigate that, but yeah, I think that's about all I had.